Hey, good morning, Dennis.
Hey, Tom.
How are you?
Can you hear me okay, Tom?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So Chris is getting some work done in the field today.
He does it every time. He's the only guy I've ever seen who can multitask.
Yeah, drive a tractor and participate in a Zoom at the same time.
Crazy.
Guys, if y'all were as far behind as we are, y'all be trying to do the same.
Hey, I'm not knocking it, brother. I wish I had that ability.
Well, I told her, I was just on the phone with one of the boys, one of my son, and I said, it's amazing how you can go to school and ride a tractor now. Just think couldn't have done that 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's been so wet on us. It's just been killing us. We're about
I can
3
imagine.
weeks. We're about, I don't know, we're 15 days out on setting potatoes. We should have had them in the ground on the 15th of February. So maybe we'll be setting today, this evening, I hope.
How many acres do you have?
We mess with about 100 acres of nothing but produce. Our
Okay.
main crop is butter beans, lima beans.
Yep,
That's kind of like tobacco for us.
I got you.
And then we grow odd crops. We mess with about 5 acres of onions, 10 acres of Irish potatoes. We could try to keep strict to the fresh market.
Right.
As long as you stay on the wholesale side, and then we sell a little bit at our markets, but as long as you stick to the fresh market and keep them niche stuff that nobody else wants to mess with, you can make some pretty good money with it.
All right, well, good.
So what all do you do?
I'm sorry?
What do you do?
I'm the guy that has the sanitary toilet plunger.
Okay.
You need one, Chris. You need several on that farm.
Well, I've been looking at the sanitizer thing in the back, and I was like, well, in this thing, and I was like, well, I need to talk to him because we're getting ready for the GAP stuff, the food quality and all. So you have to have everything's got to be just right when our help comes in, and we get, we go through our audit and all that stuff.
Well, I can hook you up with with Tom. He's got it.
You got an inside connection.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna mute y'all.
Okay. Andy Gilicinski has joined us. We're not quite ready to start. But Andy, welcome. And
Thank you.
We're talking about toilet plungers and farming. So, you never know with this group.
That's right.
All right, I'm trying to manage letting people in. So I apologize if I space out or whatever.
No worries.
Brady, my main man, is not here today, so I live in fear that we may have technical difficulties, but we've made it so far. Andy had to navigate about 3 passcodes, I think, to get in. I don't even know what happened. We use the same one every time, so who knows?
No worries. It all worked out.
Good. I'm glad. I was panicking. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know. So I guess I'll start tap dancing.
The proverbial chalk talk.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask Zach to tap dance because I think he probably can. I can't. But,
Pretty talented dancer,
That's right. Okay, so let's see here. People are coming in. Okay. We'll just give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
Sounds perfect.
Andy, where are you today? Where are you coming in from?
Just west of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, excellent.
We're all excited because a week ago it was below 0 for the high, and today it's going to make it up to 43. So there's a huge thaw happening, which we're very excited about.
That's fantastic.
It's not quite North Carolina weather, but it's getting closer.
Yeah.
We have one of our companies, Joe McEwen is here. He's got a company and he makes liquor infused meats, and his meat co-packer is in Wisconsin.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
Oh, where is that, Joe? I forget where your guy is.
It's in Cadott.
Okay. You ever heard of that, Andy?
No, I haven't, but there's an awful lot of wonderful little towns around the state that I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure it's in a beautiful part of the state.
It's just outside of Eau Claire.
Oh my goodness, that's gorgeous country. My goodness.
Yeah, Joe, we have these meetings and then we eat/drink his hot dogs and have a hell of a time, you know.
Oh, jeez.
Sounds awesome. I'll be actually driving by there in about a week and a half. My son's got spring break from college, and we decided to do a driving trip up to Duluth, Minnesota,
Awesome.
just because.
Oh my God. Is that because of those Duluth commercials, are really funny commercials that company, I forget what kind of company, some kind of clothing company, and they say they're from Duluth, Minnesota.
I think I saw that. You're right. You're right. No, it's because somebody that I was speaking to about a month ago said, "Oh, it's like the San Francisco Bay Area. It's got bay and beauty and hills and everything." So it sounded like an interesting part of the country.
I think you talked to the Chamber of Commerce, what it sounds like to me.
Could be. Could well be.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started there. I'll try to pay attention to the stragglers. So everybody, I want you to meet my friend Andy Gilicinski. And, we all go through life and we meet different people. And I have to say that Andy's been one of the greatest people I've met and worked with over the last few years. He's a wonderful guy. And, he's got a lot to offer all of you who are, particularly if you're in consumer product goods. But he's been there, done it, has the T-shirt, or multiple T-shirts, I should say. And what's amazing about Andy, he's actually a PhD chemist, and he knows how to market and how to sell and how to package. So he's a Renaissance man in that sense. So I'll let Andy give you more about his background. We met a long time ago. I was working on a project I had a license with USDA for a insect repellent, an all natural insect repellent. And I ran into Andy when he was at Clorox and his team. And we've been friends ever since. And so with no further ado, I will turn it over to Andy Gilicinski.
Thank you so much, Dennis. That was more than generous. I think that's the nicest intro I've ever gotten. So my background, as Dennis said, I started life as a PhD chemist, started at the bench at a gas and chemical company. And I became more and more intrigued by how science could be used to build products that could solve real problems for people, and ended up becoming fascinated with the whole area of consumer goods. The products that we all buy and use every day, whether they're batteries or bath tissue or home cleaners, air fresheners. I've had a chance to work with a whole bunch of these kinds of products, starting at Gillette and in the personal care area, blades and razors, things like that. Then Clorox, where I met Dennis. Then moved on to Georgia Pacific Paper Company, looking to help expand them into a broader range of goods. And my last big company was SC Johnson, leading air fresheners and then doing mergers and acquisitions. Along the way, I have launched over $500 million in incremental year one sales new products. I've done almost $2 billion worth of M&A deals, led the diligence for Clorox buying this little company I never heard of before called Burt's Bees, located out in Raleigh, Durham, and in 2007. And then most recently at SC Johnson, a sunscreen company. And now I'm running my own firm. After 32 years of working for big companies, I'm now working for my own self. And it's a chance to work with a whole bunch of different firms that would like help either with M&A or with innovation. And the beauty of it is I get perspective on so many different kinds of projects that different companies are doing in consumer goods. And I'm excited to talk to you today about branding, the power of branding, and how that relates to startups. So, Dennis, if you'll jump into the second slide, that would be great.
Let me. Everybody see it? Okay.
Awesome.
Can everybody see the screen? Okay, good.
So if you can jump to the second slide, the topics I'd like to cover today are just a reiteration of the power and the value of branding. And again, I'll be presenting off of slides, but it's meant to be an interactive discussion. So please jump in with questions. Otherwise, I'll stop periodically and ask you questions. Talk a little bit about metrics around a powerful consumer brand, what that looks and feels like, and then the role of brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. I'll refer to this as CPG, and I'd love to weave in discussion of any of your own brands, whether it's liquor infused hot dogs or sausages or anything else, or other products that you have as well. So I'd like to start with the power of branding. And this is kind of a classic way of looking at it. Can everyone see clearly? I'm worried the numbers may be a little small. You guys? Perfect. So last year, Forbes listed their annual look at the value of the world's biggest brands. I haven't seen the 2021 numbers out yet, but I'm sure they aren't too big of a surprise. They calculated, of course, the brand revenue is easy. What are the sales around that brand? And they calculated the brand value in terms of what is the value of that company's brand beyond the physical assets, the inventory, the plants, the manufacturing facilities, and everything else. And it basically reflects how much you're paying for, or all of us are paying for as a consumer, beyond just the physical cost of the products themselves. In other words, how much are we paying for the brand promise that that product gives? You know, we all know that branded products often carry a premium. That brand value column is a reflection of what that premium is. And before I spill out the answer, anyone care to guess out of all these companies listed here, the top 10, which one is the most valuable brand in the world?
Coca-Cola.
You got it. It has been for many years. Great guess, Zach. And basically, it's the difference. In fact, if you can click it one more, Dennis, it'll just put a circle around the numbers. The difference between the 25 billion in revenue and the 64.5 billion in change brand value is basically the value of the brand itself. And Coca-Cola has topped this list for many years. You know, if you look at a couple of these, products like Microsoft, their sales are 126 billion, brand value is about 163 billion. There's a little bit of a premium for the name of Microsoft. For things like Apple, it's about even Steven. You know, their revenue and their brand value are similar. For Amazon, the brand value is actually lower than the sales, and that's partly because they sell so many third-party things on their site that are not branded Amazon, that it dilutes the negative net impact of the brand. But for Coca-Cola, the brand value is worth more than their entire sales in a given year, in terms of the power of the brand and their ability to sell products through that name. And if you click to the next slide, Dennis, Coke has done so many things well. They began back in 1886. You can see from the way their logo has changed that by 1900, they essentially had the basic look and feel of the logo for the brand already figured out. And similarly, for the iconic shape of the bottle at the bottom left, right around 1900, they already had the basic look of the bottle. And that is part of their total brand imaging and the way that they convey their brand to consumers. The shape of the bottle is part of the identity of Coca-Cola. And they've been very consistent over the years in helping to reinforce that, to advertise around that. Their messaging has changed over the years. Some of you have been around for a while might remember back in the 60s, you know, the "I'd like to buy the world of Coke," jingle. Obviously, that's not used anymore, but so many of the key parts of the brand dress are still there. And it just continues to reinforce and strengthen the power of that brand. And before you think, oh my gosh, you know, really good brands, they have to be around forever. There are some really neat stories, and Dennis, if you'll switch to the next slide, of some very recent successes from brands that have started up and have really been able to offer a unique proposition to consumers and have been very handsomely rewarded. A couple of my favorite examples, Annie's mac and cheese. You think about something as pedestrian as mac and cheese. Back in 1989, you could see the carload of the initial founders selling mac and cheese in New England, literally going car by car to different stores. They began to really hit it off, the whole idea of fresh ingredients, clean label, organic, which was introduced in the 1990s. And creating this whole vibe around, really good farm fresh ingredient food became very popular. They went national in the late 90s. A lot of fundraising and growth, went public in 2012. In 2014, they were acquired by General Mills. Huge brand. If you look at the mac and cheese section, I believe it now has more shelf space than the iconic Kraft mac and cheese that many of us grew up with over the years. So, a great example of something that is not a novel product, but they came up with a unique way of offering a different brand promise to consumers than they were getting with this very traditional food item in the marketplace. Another recent example that I love, being a veteran of Gillette, on the lower left, you'll see Harry's razors. They started with a subscription service. They got into Target, I think, in 2017. In 2019, Energizer offered $1.4 billion for the company that had just been founded 6 years prior. So again, a real success story. That deal ended up getting blocked by the FTC in early 2020 because of the concern that Schick, which is a brand also owned by Energizer, combined with Harry's, might wield too much market influence. And again, as a veteran of Gillette, which used to own 80% market share in the US, this is just a reflection of how much the blade and razor market has changed. For the FTC to even be worried about market share versus a company like Gillette, with Harry's teaming up with Schick. And last but not least is Truman's. This one really makes me shake my head from a personal perspective. It was founded in February of 2019, and they got some great press, partly because they were riding the wave of a solution to single-use plastic. What they're using is literally 18-year-old technology called JAWS, Just Add Water System, from a contract manufacturer called Canberra, that was offering, if you see on the lower right, those 4 different colored things. They are actually cartridges that you put into the top of an empty spray bottle, and you fill the bulk of it with water. And as the water is pulled up through the dip tube, it goes through that cartridge, and then it adds window cleaner, disinfecting cleaner, soapy bathroom cleaner, whatever you want. And what gets sprayed out is a combination of the water from the main part of the bottle, along with some of the chemistry that goes through the cartridge. And the idea is you can buy the cartridges
That's a good.
and
Take a picture of
reuse.
that. That's good. The intern helping another one.
Please mute your microphone, whoever. Thanks.
Although, Karen, if you had a comment on it, I'd love to hear it. But
Me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's what happens when you're in the field with your interns from UMO. I'll try to find that setting.
Okay.
No worries, Karen. I thought you were jumping in with a comment. Maybe you had tried Truman cleaners, but the idea is you can reuse the main bottle and then just buy the cartridges to use to go ahead and make whatever cleaners you want. So it sort of rode the wave of societal concern about single-use plastic. We've all seen the videos of plastic in the Pacific Ocean, and this really caught the public's fancy, and literally 6 months after starting, using 18-year-old technology. And by the way, this was technology that I had evaluated at Clorox during my time there, and yet Truman's founders were smart enough to use this old technology, come up with a new concept, a brand around it, and a promise to consumers that was different than what was out there today. And so it didn't require new invention. It required cleverness around thinking about what a consumer need might be, a brand around it, a proposition around it, a cool website, and a direct-to-consumer model for selling. And, even though I saw the technology in 2005, I'm not making the kind of money that the founders of Truman's are making right now with both their sales and their investment and everything else. So that just shows you how smart I am. There's so much room today for new ideas, new opportunities, and in case you think it's just sort of fancier categories like shaving or foods or cleaning, Dennis, if you could flip to the next slide. This isn't quite bathroom tissue, but it's close to it. It's wet bath tissue category, and you think this might be a pretty sleepy place for innovation. Well, back in 2015, founder went on Shark Tank, got a deal, investment with something called Dude Wipes. These are nothing novel in terms of technology. They're just positioning it for men in terms of fragrance-free and packaging that appeals to men and a message that appeals to men. And I think it's a little bit more of a robust substrate for use for toilet, for the same thing bath tissue is used for, but with a pre-moistened product. And today, it's now in over 12,000 stores. It's a major product at Walmart. And what I showed on the right actually is a post on LinkedIn from the CEO of the company that he literally posted 2 days ago, showing that he had overtaken Charmin and was now the #1 wet bath tissue product in Walmart in terms of market share. So again, this is all in 5.5 years' time. They've gone big with, again, a product that's been around, but someone came up with a really cool brand promise, a really neat approach to how to communicate with their target consumers, and came up with something that was differentiated, exciting, and companies like Target and Walmart felt, you know what? They offer something new to the category that can help excite shoppers, that can help increase dollar ring on their shelf, and can help increase their value as retailers. Because remember, a retailer isn't going to put something on the shelf just because you want it there. They're going to put it on because it increases the productivity of that shelf. Otherwise, why would they take perfectly good shelf space from brands like Charmin and Kimberly-Clark's brands, Cottonelle and others, and give it to some startup that may or may not succeed? They're going to go with what they think is going to excite the category and increase their shoppers' spend at their store. Dude Wipes was able to make that argument convincingly, gain distribution, and get into the hearts and the bathrooms of an awful lot of people across America.
The hearts and where the sun don't shine, right?
You got it. You got it. And so just to close on this first section around the brand, one thing that I think is really common about the examples, whether it's the massive success of Coca-Cola over literally more than a century, or whether it's just a couple of years of a rapid growth of brand new consumer brands that clever entrepreneurs have grown, they have answered this question that Simon Sinek asks. And Dennis, I don't know if this video is something that our participants have had a chance to talk about or see yet.
Let's see here. Is there a video here? Maybe I'm
there isn't a video here. This is just a screenshot of one that I've pulled off of ARNC previously. I'm just curious if it's been talked about yet this in the last 2 months.
No, it has not yet.
So there's a video that Simon Sinek puts on that's really good, and he talks about what your brand stands for, what your company stands for isn't just the product you make. We make computers, they work. You buy them, you turn them on, they do their thing. He contrasts, I think, in his video, Dell computer, which has a very utilitarian approach. You order your computer online or buy it at Costco and you get it and it works and it runs Windows and it runs programs for you. It's good. And you compare that to a company like Apple Computer that, believe it or not, still sells computers as well as iPhones. And when they sell computers, they don't sell something that runs programs. They sell something that solves problems. They sell something that makes you feel smart. They sell something that helps you do things in your life and feel empowered. And you probably all remember the 1984 ad, the famous ad during the Super Bowl, where they were launching the Macintosh, and more recently their Think Different campaign, where they're really talking about, hey, we're here to help you be creative and do things with your computer and feel smart with your computer. But what Simon is getting at is it's not just what you do. That's good, but that's just table stakes. Even more important is how you do it. What are you about? How are you doing it differently than your competitors? But the most important of all is why. Why are you doing it? What do you stand for? What is your purpose for your brand? That is ultimately what makes a brand more powerful. That helps build them up to become more important to people's lives, and creates more brand value and helps differentiate the offering that that your firm might have. So I'll just pause there because this is the end of the first section where I'm just talking in general about brand. I'd love your thoughts and reactions. What here resonates with you? What have you seen that has inspired you with the brand?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to jump on and make sure the group is thinking about, and we're going to get to Simon Sinek soon. We're going to have a guest speaker named Tom Newell, who insists that everyone watch that Simon Sinek video before he will talk. So I promised him that I would do that. I haven't got around to that yet, but he's not on for at least another week. I want to just point out a couple of things that Andy said that reiterate some of the things we've been talking about. Number one, did you notice him talk about the success of brands, both long-term and short-term, because they solve a problem, right? We've been talking about what is it that your business does? And I've characterized it as, what problem are you solving with your business? It's a critical understanding of brand value. And so I really am happy that Andy said that, because that's the mantra I want all of you to keep in mind when we go through this branding and positioning and brand story, all the stuff we've been talking about. You have to really think about what problem, and it doesn't have to be one problem. It can be more than one, but it has to be at least one. So I just want to point that out, and otherwise I'll now shut up. Okay. Anybody else?
Excellent point, Dennis.
Any questions?
Please jump in with your thoughts. I would really love to hear what has inspired you in terms of a brand that you've seen, that you've used, or that maybe you're creating.
Well, our brand, we have a produce farm, so branding produce is, I don't know how you would kind of brand it, besides we have now my mind just went blank on what we were just we were trying to think of a logo or just something to put on a shirt, and we put we grow things, that's what we do, and underneath it, it's like 90% of what we sell is homegrown here on the farm. But I don't know, I kind of get lost in it's not a single item.
Well, I can tell you that, and Andy, I promised I'd shut up, but I'm not doing a very good job of it. There are some companies in the produce space, and we'll be ready to help you sharing with us. But one of the best examples I've run across is Dirty Girl Produce out of Santa Cruz, California. They've been around about 30 years. They were selling in farmers markets all around the San Francisco Bay Area, and then COVID shut them down. So in March or April, they went online for the first time in their history, and they are now selling nationwide, and their sales are up 10 times what they've ever been in their 30-year history. And I think Dirty Girl Produce to me is the key, because that cuts through a lot of stuff. But we're going to help you this year, because you actually have a lot of great things that you can do.
We started, like, we had to start the CSA, and I don't really consider it a CSA. We do produce boxes during our season. And that really grew, and it's just a matter of how big you want to grow. And because there's only like 5 of us, so there's only so much, And, but that's, yeah.
Well,
Well,
that-
remember, Sherry,
Go ahead.
for pineapples, Dole, for bananas, Chiquita. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to introduce the country to, your new favorite vegetable, the zucchini. Coming from your farm.
yeah, yeah,
I think, Andy, the thing for me is, I'm an engineer, so I'm very technical and kind of pragmatic. And, what I've had to learn is that the branding part is really about sort of an emotional connection with the customer. And, anytime I'm trying to describe my product, I always want to talk about the features, of the
Yep.
product. And at the end of the day, the customer probably really doesn't care as much about that as sort of those feelings and emotions that you evoke. And that's a really challenging thing to try to understand and pin down and figure out what that target audience looks like and what really kind of makes them tick and really gets them fired up about your product.
No, Tom, I totally get it. As a scientist myself, a functional description is what's logically makes sense.
Right.
But Sinek really talks about it in a beautiful way. He says that's important, but that's kind of at the outer ring of creating that emotional connection, being able to celebrate that and find ways to tell stories about that
Right.
reflects not just what it is that you have in terms of its functional attributes, but how you make it or how you bring it to people, things that are special about that. And then at the core, why do you do it? Tom, why do you feel great about getting up in the morning and making what you make and
Sure.
providing it to people? And you might already have a story there, and it's just a matter of pulling it out because the engineering and scientific training doesn't make that feel important.
Right.
But
Yeah, that's right.
but on an emotional level, it's huge.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. I'm just curious, what is the product or business area that you're?
So it's a sanitary toilet plunger. So
That's right. You were talking about that earlier. Yeah.
It's so yesterday I said it's the cleanest toilet plunger ever made.
Well, you know what? There's a place in this world for that because who of us hasn't used one, and who of us hasn't gone ooh afterwards?
Right.
I was at Clorox as they were successfully commercializing the toilet wand, which isn't a plunger but a cleaner, and they actually were the fourth to market. There was a real concern about the market's gotten away from us. We were too slow. Others hit upon this idea of getting away from the yuck, but they did such an excellent job of executing that they slowly climbed up and became the top. And the beautiful thing is it's this wonderful blade and razor model, which I can speak credibly about from Gillette days. And, where once you've got that handle, you're more likely to buy the refills. And my goodness, those refills are profitable. So, Tom, if you've got an approach that sort of provides a similar benefit that solves that problem, my goodness, you're working in a good space.
That's what I'm working on. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I know a consultant. He's up in Wisconsin. He might be worth talking to. This guy named Andy.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, ready to share again?
Yeah, let's go again. Now going into metrics.
Hopefully I'll succeed with this, although Brady has shown up. So if all else fails, we can get Brady. So don't worry.
All right. We've got our safety net now. So the next thing I just wanted to mention is metrics. There's a number of ways you can measure a brand. We saw one on the first slide. Some of the things that are important, especially as you go in Simon Sinek's diagram from the what are you making to how are you providing it to why do you do it. The mission and the beliefs around your brand, the way you talk about the convictions and the purpose of your brand are really important. And those can be measured in a variety of ways. Unaided awareness is a good one. You get consumers together and you ask them, what do you think about brands of toilet plungers? Or, how do you feel about different farm fresh zucchini that, you may have eaten in the last year? And hopefully they'll mention the brands that you're providing or the products that you're providing. But social media provides us a whole new world of ability, not just to communicate our brands, but also to measure the stickiness or the effectiveness of those brands in growing in the hearts and the minds of consumers and the people you want to sell to. Looking at the followers, the likes, the impressions, the earned media that they provide is a great metric. And a recent acquisition that I was involved with actually used that as hard data to quantify the power of the brand that we were contemplating spending boatloads of money on, in a very frothy merger and acquisition environment. So if you click the next click, Dennis, will show you some of the just examples of brands and going back to mission and beliefs. Some of the ones that I thought were particularly noteworthy because they do a great job of doing exactly what Tom was talking about. How do they get beyond the functional benefits of what we provide to what we stand for? Our things like our mission for Harley Davidson. I love this one: to fulfill the dreams of personal all-American freedom. They're very unabashed about that. Disney, to create happiness for people of all ages everywhere. They don't talk about what they provide, tickets to parks, rides that spin you around, if you visit them, things you can see on your TV on Disney Plus. They talk about what their mission is. And that even extends into beliefs. I love Nike's statement of belief. We believe if you have a body, you're an athlete. Now, how about that for a way to make their brand relevant to all of us, not just people training for the Olympics or playing professional sports on television? Airbnbs is kind of inspirational too. You might think, oh, it's just another way to book places to stay. We believe travel is better when you experience it as an insider. Now, isn't that elevated? It's not just a room that you're staying in. It's now a portal to experience your destination in a new and a different way. So these are just examples again, and others may speak to you, and you may be aware of some that you especially love about products that you're especially loyal to. But these are a good place to start with a brand, because if you're clear in your own mind around what your mission is, what you are serving people to do with your business, and what your beliefs are about why you're doing it, and what your purpose is in doing that. And if you're especially good at being able to capture that mission or those sets of beliefs in a very pithy, clever way, then you can use that as a powerful part of how you grow and communicate your brand or your offering to people that you want to serve, and it helps bring it alive in their minds, and more importantly, in their hearts. So when they think about toilet plungers, they're not thinking about just a very mechanical device that does a job in a better way. They're thinking about what that does for them in terms of confidence in their home, or their ability to enjoy their home in a more sanitary way, or with the farm fresh produce, to feel the confidence in the life-giving nutrition that comes from the earth that is so well expressed in her product. Again, I'm of course just making these up, but it's really worth taking a moment to get clear on what your beliefs are and what your mission is, and seeing if there might be a clever way to incorporate that in your brand. The next slide goes into a personal example. This is an acquisition that I did almost 2 years ago now, and I think I saw Amber on the call. This is one that she's gotten excited about as well. It's a sunscreen called Sunbum. I don't know if any of you have tried this product. It's fairly expensive. I think it's still $16 for a bottle of it versus $3.50 for Equate sunscreen at Walmart. So it comes at a heck of a multiple, but the product is made with premium ingredients, fragrances and skincare agents, emollients that really give it a nice smell and a nice feel. That's definitely a cut above, your Coppertone or your private label sunscreen. But even more than that, is the brand promise. They talk about sort of promoting the beach lifestyle and the beach life. And in fact, when we were doing the acquisition diligence, during the first stage of diligence, we went to the leadership of the company, and Fitz Johnson himself was sitting there looking at us squinty eyed, like, what are you talking about? This brand was talking about work less, play more. They were trying to create an aspirational sense of vacation for type A hardworking people. And he was looking at it literally thinking, if people followed your advice, this company's advice, how could they afford the product? They have to, get a third mortgage to be able to afford it if they're not working. And what he became to appreciate as we dug into it further and really began to deepen our diligence and our understanding of this as a potential acquisition for the company was that this brand, Sunbum, was selling an aspiration. People were working so hard in their jobs, whether they were professionals or hardworking, out in the fields or wherever they were. And this brand was trying to give them at least an aspirational ability to relax and to almost mentally take the vacation that they wish they could take, but they're working too hard to take, and to sort of have an aspiration to a lifestyle that they, in their dreams, they'd love to try, even if it's just for a weekend. And that's what they were selling, an aspiration. And the beautiful thing about this brand is they started as a sunscreen back in 2011, but they had a vision that they could expand into adjacent markets. And their brand promise was appropriate for lip care, and they expanded quickly into that. They felt like they could go into the baby care aisles in stores because, after all, you take your baby to the beach too. And this whole ethos around beach lifestyle was very amenable to that. And then into hair care with shampoos and conditioners, because, after all, if you're living on the beach, the phenomenon of beach hair, where you've got salt water and sand and sun and everything in there. It's very harsh, actually, on hair. And so who better than the brand that aspires to the beach lifestyle to be able to take care of it? And I'll tell you, it really made this brand so much more powerful because the extendability creates the ability for your business to grow into a broader area. Whether it's farm products that you might consider extending into things that use those farm products. My favorite example of that is Hidden Valley Ranch. They were a farm. They made all kinds of great, grew great vegetables. And guess what? They came up with a cool recipe for ranch salad dressing back in the mid 1950s based on the produce that farm was making. And so they could extend from the produce itself to products that include those produce items. And Tom, who knows, your sanitary plunger might extend into a line of bathroom cleaning products or bathroom cleaning tools. If the brand has a message that can bring it to different places and give it the right to play and the right to extend its brand promise to new areas of services or offerings to consumers, then that makes that brand much more powerful. And by the way, if you ever aspire to sell your company, the extendability is huge in terms of the potential value. I can tell you for sure that the extendability of Sunbum was a direct input into the valuation that SC Johnson was willing to put around the company. I can't share the numbers, but it definitely paid off for the owners. They're very happily retired now after their 10 years of creating and then selling this brand. The next slide, Dennis, talks about the role of new brands in consumer packaged goods. And as legacy brands are out there, they don't always do a good job of extending the way I just described the example of Sunbum or what the Farm Fresh product or sanitary plunger might be able to do. This is an example. The one on the right is a made-up example of what bringing soda brands into the sauce and marinade area might look like. doesn't look too convincing to me personally. So if these things launched, I wouldn't expect them to be successful. The offering on the left, the Colgate beef lasagna, is actually something that was launched by the Colgate company. And that's one of those, what were they thinking kinds of questions, because these people sell toothpaste. And now they're trying to sell me something that my toothpaste has to take off. How do I think about it? Their sales of toothpaste actually dropped by 25% during the year that they launched the lasagna product in the frozen section of your favorite grocery store, because it so thoroughly confused consumers. They thought, well, are they no longer in the toothpaste business? It didn't make sense. The brand could not extend to this area. So I'll pause there for a moment and just, I'd love to hear your thoughts about brand extendability and experiences you've had or ideas you've had, maybe about your own brands.
Hey, and it's Joe. So going to that sauce line that you had there with the carbonated beverages, was it the fact that those beverages brands were so entrenched for so long as a drink, whereas if for some reason they would have started out more broadly and Dr. Pepper, 7-Up was more of a food brand versus a drink brand, would it have, you think, extended well?
Joe, I think you're exactly onto the right path there, because it has a very specific promise within the soft drink industry, and because it promises something very specific that people associate with the taste of Dr. Pepper. They're not used to that taste in the sauces that they're marinating their chicken or beef with, or whatever it might be. So the whole idea of marinating in soda, it was just too tightly identified with that. So you're exactly right. If it started more broadly, they may have been able to find a path.
Yeah. So the question then is, if you start out too broadly, though, you won't maybe get the traction that you're looking for. So how do you walk that line to where you have your leading products as you launch? You want to be specific enough to get traction, but leave yourself wiggle room to extend later on. How do you walk that line well?
Joe, that's a case by case thing. You want to start broad, but you want to mean something. And if you start too broad, you don't mean anything. And I'll bring up one example. It's not a perfect example, but it illustrates an interesting way of thinking about it. I assume you're all familiar with Dove. They make face creams and things like that. And they were doing advertising, like 20 years ago, where they're talking about how much cream they're putting into the bottle. And so they kind of made their identification around cream that went into face creams and body lotions and personal care products, because they define themselves around that cream and as a part of their brand promise. They actually got into ice cream.
Yeah.
and starting out, you would think, my goodness, what a soap company going into foods? Impossible. But because of the way they framed it, whether it was brilliance at the start or whether they got a little bit lucky and along the way someone realized, wait a minute, cream can get us into something else, and they were able to come up with Dove bars and extend their brand into a food, but not into all foods. They couldn't go into vegetables or sauces or things like that, but things associated with the cream that people thought of their brand with, they could. So there's a bit of magic, Joe, in sort of how you define the brand and what the core benefit is that you're really trying to sell. So I wish there was an algorithm for that. As a scientist, I dream about stuff like that, but I think it's a little bit art and a little bit science. And the important thing is that you're sort of beginning with the end in mind. Do you want to be able to extend in certain areas? And sometimes it's helpful to think from where you're starting and working outwards. Sometimes it's good to just flip the question a little bit and think, okay, where do I want to end? And how do I work backwards from that? And if I'm trying to end at this space, what would need to be true? What would I want to incorporate at the beginning to make it possible to go there? So I love your question. I wish I had a better answer, but
No, thank you for that. And the last question here is going back to the brand statements you had with like Nike and those others. Do you view those as positional statements or taglines? That's the first half of the question. The second half is there some unspoken rule related to length, whether it be by syllable count or word count or character count, that to where it's effective but not too wordy?
Yep. So for the tagline, I think Nike is actually a great example. They're talking about a belief statement. We believe if you have a body, you're an athlete, but their tagline is much simpler. We all know it. Just do it. And represented by the swoosh. So I think that it's perfectly reasonable to have sort of layers of how much you communicate, as long as it's all consistent up and down the line. The why connects with the how, which connects with the what, as you'll see in the Simon Sinek video. And then as long as the tagline, even if it uses completely different words from your belief statement or your mission statement, as long as the words are consistent and really tight with the spirit of it, I think you're totally good. It doesn't have to be like a shortened version of the same belief statement, as long as they speak to each other and they feel like they're said by the same entity, the same brand, the same person advocating it, says both things. I think that's the key. In terms of, is there an algorithm? I would love there to be one, on kind of what the syntax is, and what is it, the iambic pentameter that from English class that tells you exactly what really resonates. I think that language experts would say that there probably is. It's beyond my expertise, certainly. And I think that there are probably, as many rules as there are, they can be broken as well. I mean, back when Apple did the Think Different campaign, proper English is think differently. So they weren't even speaking proper grammar at the time, but they were able to get away with it because of the intuitive sort of nature of what they were talking about, and people just kind of got it. And in a way, it almost helped them stand out a little bit more because they were breaking the rules on English, on grammar, and that actually, in a clever, backhanded sort of way, reinforced the message that they were trying to get across. So I'm guessing that there are some great rules around that, or guidelines to it. There are probably some wonderful ways to measure it also, Joe. These days they have these brain scanning things and eye trackers, and pretty soon they'll be putting chips inside of us to assess how we feel about things. but so they give you very quantitative data. The eye tracking stuff is incredibly powerful. You put a statement up along with an image in front of a consumer, and it'll show you what parts of it their eye is spending the most time on, and it gives you a chance to sort of get a very helpful assessment of what parts are people paying most attention to, and what parts are just right over people's heads. They're just not even looking, or they're not tracking with it, or they just look right through it. So I'm sure, Joe, that there's great science around it. I just can't suggest what it might be. And I think the Apple Think Different example suggests that, even if there are good algorithms for this, there's probably ways to sort of violate them and still get something that works.
Yeah, my wife, she's an English professor, so you can imagine the debates we have about what's effective and what's proper. So, but thank you for your answers. Appreciate it.
Oh, totally. My goodness. She might be your secret weapon, Joe, in coming up with the right way to do it. I have a great respect for being able to distill something down into just a couple of words. It's so powerful because people have busy lives. They don't have time to read a half-page statement from you. And yet my personal predisposition is, if you can say it in 5 words, why not use 50? And my wife is very good at being very concise and is always editing my stuff down. And so hopefully you'll benefit from the same, Joe.
Sure.
Yeah, I think also, Joe, and all of you who are thinking about this tagline versus brand position, because that's come up quite a bit by everybody. I think that at least with the brand positioning, my perspective is that that could well change over time, depending on circumstances, depending on your company. For example, just do it, and the new Nike swoosh has been consistent for a long time. But this current positioning about athlete in the body used to be think different, right? Or some other message. So I think it's important to realize that this is a dynamic process, not set once and forget about it. And particularly as startups or new companies, you may find yourself going through iterations that or evolutions really of that brand positioning. So don't get locked into figuring out the perfect thing that never changes, because that is not that really isn't the truth.
Yeah.
Shall we go back
The-
to screen?
Yeah, that sounds good. Although I'd love to just comment on that, because Dennis, that was such an insightful statement. The thing that's important is to make sure that your core positioning stays similar. How you talk about it, as Dennis said, absolutely can change, but you don't want to change like the core values of who you are, the why. That should be consistent. How you talk about it absolutely can change. And some brands have gotten in trouble because they have changed their why or, their core positioning is like, oh, gee, that wasn't working. Let's try a new one. We got a new marketing manager. Let's try something new. And that's when brands can get in serious trouble, when they start to swing and consumers get confused about who the heck they are.
Yeah, if we see the Charmin bear talking about dude wipes, we know all hell has broken loose.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So yeah, let's jump back in. So new brands, what can they do? What is their role in the consumer goods industry? Well, it turns out that needs change and needs evolve. And just starting with the Impossible Meat one, I think that's the most intuitive one, as people were worried from a health standpoint, or perhaps from a climate change standpoint, about the livestock industry and meat and animals and everything, and it started becoming technically possible to create, through fermentation and various biotech techniques, a plant-based food, a protein source that could mimic the meat, starting with hamburgers that people have loved. It became possible for a new brand to come in, because you wouldn't necessarily trust a plant-based food source coming from, I'm trying to think of a beef company. I can't think of one offhand, but, Purdue Chicken, if there's a version of Impossible Meats for chicken, you probably would be skeptical if it came from one of the traditional purveyors of regular chicken. And so that created an opening for Impossible Foods to come out from nowhere. And very cleverly create their brand promise and their partnerships with traditional purveyors of hamburgers to create a very substantial business very quickly. EOS was trying to convey something new in this lip balm area. Everybody was locked into the little tubes, and they decided, what? Lip balm can be different shape. Let's go with that. And they made it more of a fashion item. And they followed up with that by marketing it on social media. In fact, they grew tremendously. And then on social media, they ran into one of the risks of it back in 2014, when one of the social media luminaries that was previously promoting them said that they got an infection or some kind of a bad reaction to the EOS product, and slammed it on social media. And it was like a bottle rocket. All of a sudden their sales tanked, and from being in every store and distribution in Costco and everything else, suddenly you couldn't find them anymore. And they're still around. They've tried to recover, but they're an example of trying to ride the fashion wave of what their brand was trying to provide. You all probably know the Dollar Shave Club video. You've seen the viral video. They basically pioneered the idea that, Gillette is overdoing it. 3 blades, 4 blades, 5 blades, what's next, 15 blades? And, they kind of almost used that in a jujitsu move against Gillette and said, better value for the money. there's such a thing as good enough shaving and getting it for a great price. And that's what we're going to promise you, as opposed to this infinite arms race in blade technology, which is starting to, require half your weekly paycheck just to shave yourself in the morning, and use a great viral video to go around it. And they basically started the transformation of the blade industry. I can tell you, when I worked there, and they had 80% dollar share of a $6 billion US industry, and they were literally taking 3 pennies worth of raw materials and selling them to people for $3.99 a piece. That was minting money. And they have turned that industry on its head by meeting a need that was not even acknowledged in the world. They had the insight that there was a need for a good enough shaving solution that didn't cost an arm and a leg, and a new way to deliver it to consumers, and benefited handsomely. They were sold for well over $1 billion, or for a little over $1 billion to Unilever. Honest came up, they were riding the wave of concern about safety, all the chemicals that people perceive to be in a variety of products, home cleaning, diapers, everything else. And Jessica Alba created the brand, has gone through some ups and downs, but they are now approaching an initial public offering, which I would predict is going to be very, very rewarding for her as they continue to expand the offerings that help provide this promise, or deliver on this promise of safe for you from having more chemicals and unnameable chemicals that you might be scared of and you might not want in there. And last but not least, these brands are brand new, but what about legacy brands? And in the last slide, Dennis, if you could flip to that, I offer you the example of Unilever. They have a number of in-house brands, but they have a neat combination of creating new ones internally, but also using acquisitions to be able to keep their brand stable fresh and to help them address new needs in the market that their current stable of brands can't necessarily effectively address. Just like we saw before with the Colgate example, getting into frozen lasagna. Unilever recognizes their brands can't meet all the emerging consumer needs. So let's acquire them, as well as try to extend the current ones we have, or perhaps create new ones. Ben & Jerry's was a big deal back when it was acquired in 2000. And Unilever has done an amazing job of not just acquiring the brand and learning from how Ben & Jerry's does things, but Ben & Jerry's has actually influenced the parent company in terms of some of their culture and some of the ways that they do things. So it's really been a two-way street in terms of Unilever growing and expanding their space in ice cream, but also learning from the vibe of this very socially conscious brand that they picked up in 2000. In 2010, they picked up the Alberto Culver line of hair care products to expand their offerings there. 2016, of course, they got the Dollar Shave Club brand and created this whole new direct-to-consumer capability within Unilever. So they not only entered the shaving market, but they also created a new channel for themselves, rather than trying to build it from scratch without the aid of the experience that Dollar Shave Club brought them. 2016, they kind of built a little bit on the Ben & Jerry's thing and bought Seventh Generation, my former competitor. I launched Greenworks to compete with them, and Unilever expanded their environmentally friendly and sustainable offerings through Seventh Generation. In 2017, a very sustainable brand of natural personal care products that built on the popularity of K-beauty, or this beauty trend from South Korea that was really beginning to influence the marketplace. And again, rather than try to extend a brand in an inauthentic way there, they decided to purchase a brand that grew up in that would allow them to both compete through that brand, but also more effectively harvest and reapply the learnings to their other brands. And Dennis, my last build is they continue to be growing their acquisitions, and who knows, East Carolina University startups and ARNC may be the next Unilever acquisition. And so that kind of takes it from the other perspective. There's both the startups that grow up, but also the huge multinational, multi-billion-dollar global companies that are on the lookout to help reinvent themselves through buying new companies like the ones you guys are working on that might be able to help them stay current, meet emerging consumer needs, learn new capabilities, and stay relevant in the world. And to the extent that you are not necessarily interested in passing on your company to your future generations of your family, if you ever want to sell your company for retirement or anything else, it's good to know that these companies are out there looking for what you're trying to build and being able to pay you for what you end up creating, which is not just a great solution to a problem, talks about that solution and helps make it meaningful and brings it alive, not just in the minds of consumers, but in their hearts as well.
Well, Andy, thank you. Thank you so much for a spectacular presentation. And I know that everybody here minds are racing as they figure out their branding and positioning statement. And what's the phone number for Unilever again? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you very much. And if anybody has anything to say, I'm gonna let Andy go because we've tied him up. He's a wonderfully sharing person, and we're very, very lucky to have his perspective and this awareness that perhaps we didn't have before his talk.
Thank you.
Enjoyed the
Thank you.
conversation.
Appreciate
If there, and feel free to follow up with follow-up questions. Dennis knows how to get a hold of me, and happy to continue the conversation if there are questions or things you'd love to talk about.
Andy, this
Thank
is
you.
probably the fifth or sixth time I've heard you speak on CPG, and every time, it's something new and something exciting. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much.
But well, bye everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a
Tomorrow.
wonderful
Thanks, everybody.
day.
Tune in tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Hey, Dennis,
Yeah.
I'm a little upset here. Hold on. Let me show you. I'm looking out my window here, and I see the student center, but I don't see you sitting outside of it. It looks like you're supposed to be right there.
I'm invisible. I have a new product called Invisible Dennis. And I make myself invisible, and I can entertain myself and not bother anybody.